Hi guys, so what I wanted to do is to go through the Coordinated Communication Skills Class 3 that we did on Thursday. I've forgotten to record it, so I'm going to record myself talking about things as we do the slideshow. It's going to not be exactly the same as what we did on Thursday because I can't remember what I said on Thursday, but hopefully it'll be close enough. So after going through the videos, especially the second video that we did on food waste, and I hope you've gone and looked at the whole video because it's really good. What we did in that video was to find how you can make your own presentations more visual to another audience, how you can give information in a different way rather than just text on a slide. Some people read text very well and that's enough. Some people not so much, but the listening aspect is where perhaps they retain information. And for some of us, instead of using numbers, it's much easier to use a visual representation, whether it be a chart, whether it be an interview with somebody. We talked about how it's a more personal interaction when you have people actually on the screen as well. So let's go through the slideshow that I gave you on what makes a good presentation. So the first thing is keep it simple. The slides are not the star. We don't go to a presentation for the slides. We usually go for the content, not the slides. The scoring for your presentations will include a mark on your presentation, but it is not the only area where you will be getting marks. I intend to also mark you on your group collaborativeness, so especially in that presentation preparation day, how you work together in the group, and if there's enough give and take between people in the group. There always needs to be a leader, but that does not mean that the leader just takes over. So there has to be an all-round contribution from everyone. We don't need to use any slides that don't really help with what we're trying to say. There's no set limit on how many slides you should or should not have. There are many guidelines on the internet, but there is no actual definite number. So for a 5-minute presentation you must have 15. There is nothing like that. Lots of white space is good. We don't like to fill our slides with a lot of information. It's difficult to read, it's difficult to keep up, especially if you have people taking notes. Then if they're taking notes of the information on the slides, they can forget to actually listen to what you're saying, because often what you're saying can be just as important what's on the slide. So yeah, don't think you have to put lots of stuff on the slide to make it look good, because it doesn't. Limit bullet points and text. So as we sort of saw in that video that I presented to you, yes, there was some text, and I know it wasn't a presentation, but there is often times when you don't need any text at all, and a picture is worth 1,000 words is a common phrase that we hear. So a picture can be just as good in explaining something as somebody actually writing it on the board. Now then, the information should actually be connected to what the person is talking about. Not often, but sometimes people can stray from what's actually on the slide, or they're talking about something that's not actually on the slide. Make sure you practice your slides, because sometimes you can be jumping to the next point without actually showing it, so just be careful. And often, yeah, a handout can be better so that people aren't concentrating on taking notes of the slides. They actually have the slides and they can take notes of any information that they think is important that you're talking about. Limit transactions and build. So this is when you're moving between slides, so the slides are changing over. Just be careful of what you're doing. I said on Thursday, don't make it so that, for example, there is a slide that's here, and then so to bring it in, you swipe it from one side, but the next time you flip it in like this. We don't want that kind of mismatch through. Stick with one and just stay with it. Don't keep messing it up. And you don't have to animate everything. Some people think that, wow, a PowerPoint is great, it looks so good if I make all these funny things where information is sliding in and the pictures come in and it bounces and then it bounces out, but that can be a little too much, so hold back on all of that sort of stuff. Graphics, so I want you to use more graphics. In the first semester when you presented, there weren't as many graphics, and as we've seen already, graphics can actually help us a fair bit. So use good quality graphics. Sometimes when you see a graphic you want on the net, it's this big, and then when you blow it out, it actually becomes very pixelated and you can't actually see what it is, and if you keep it this big, it's too small. If it's a professional type of presentation, try not to have so much clip art, you know, where you're going to be presenting on research. So I'd probably stay away from clip art if possible. And people in pictures help us to connect with what's being presented. So because we're talking about environmental problems, it may be good for you to actually have a picture of how the problem is impacting on people in real life. Have a visual theme. So this is sort of like the animations where you can change things around. Stay consistent. Choose one theme. You know, PowerPoint will give you a choice. Just choose one and stick with it. Use the colors they suggest so that it's all nice and balanced. Don't do anything strange with that. If you can somehow connect your design to what you're talking about. So I know, what did I do recently? I think I did something on books. Oh, for my reading class, I gave a presentation, Yuka, you should know, about books, and I actually had the design with a book sort of thing happening. So be careful with that. Using appropriate charts. So one way we can provide information or data is to show it in a visual form in like a chart or what are those things called? What's a chart? Bar chart, pie chart. They're all charts. Okay. Be very careful when you're using a chart that you can see the information. Sometimes people write things really small. So even if when you are presenting your chart, if you can have perhaps word animation where you show the information on the axes, and to start off with, when you're saying, so this axis is the amount, and you have amount written here but it's quite small, you could actually over the top put a word that says amount that flashes up large so everyone can read it, bring it back. And the same for the bottom axis. If it says you know, the months of the year, you can say, while you're saying this bottom axis is months of the year, actually blow that up so that they can see it and bring it back. So when people are looking at the graph, the writing is small perhaps on the axes, but you've actually shown them before you go into everything. So it's one idea anyway. A pie chart, so this shows you the share, so how much of a whole. It's good for showing that information. Bar is over time, so you can see as time moves on, things change. A bar, this is comparing quantity, so it's a different, you know, it's on its side rather than being up and down. Lines show trends, so what's happening. So what color line is that? Greenish line is started quite low and it's moving up, compared to the orange line, which seems to be going up and down, and then again the red line, which, you know, started high, had a dip, but is going up again. So you can see how they sort of work within each other. Color, make it, you know, a decent color. Don't use the prime colors so much as red and yellow. It can be very difficult to read. And when you're presenting, depending on the light that's coming into the room, especially if you've got windows that can't be blacked out, if you're using lighter fonts, it can be very difficult to read. So just be aware of what the light's like. And I hope that we can actually do some presentation practice in our room, or if we do it in a different room, that we can actually get some time into practice before you present. Font, use one, stick with it. It's the same as everything else. Don't try and mix things up too much, because people just get confused and they don't know what they're looking at, and they focus on that rather than focus on what you're talking about. Size is very important. Keep things big so that everyone can see it, which means you have to have less on your slides. And if there is a certain word or piece of information that you really want to stand out within that small amount of word, you can use the bold feature to do that. Video and audio, you may want to be using this in your presentations, so only when appropriate, edit and keep short. I did say that it's going to may be difficult for you to edit video. That's fine. You can actually in PowerPoint start a video at a certain time, and you can just stop it when we've seen what we need to see. I'm not going to take marks off for doing that, but I will take marks off if you don't know how to do it. So you have to practice, make sure that, okay, so this video is coming, I need to move it to this point in time very quickly, watch, and then move to the next slide. I recommend no sound effects when you're doing things. I told you that when the slides come in, they go whoosh, whoosh. You can do all that sort of stuff, but I would stay away from that if possible. Very important to practice the presentation before you do it with your PowerPoint slides, and if possible have someone watch you so that they can give you any tips and hints, and I'll try to put that in when we're doing things later on, and I know now that we will have enough time to do that. I'm going to shake things up a bit. The next thing, check the flow of the information. So make sure that what you're saying is correct, so that it connects in with the slides and that it's in the order that you want it.